Today, I'm going to talk about VST coffee baskets and why would you buy one, what's so good about them, and will it improve your espresso compared to a standard basket that you would have in your home machine or a commercial machine. So about 10 years ago, we started to hear things about coffee baskets that we'd never really looked into in the past. We started to think about the shape, the curves, the number of holes, how deep they were, and a whole other range of precise things that need to be considered when we want to create a better espresso. Well, from that time frame, basically, VSTs and a few other brands out there have started making high precision coffee baskets. We're talking about the VST here because we do like these ones and recommend them, but why would you look at buying one of these where they're typically 3 times the price of a standard basket? Well, let's start diving into what the VST technology is all about. So you can buy a VST basket in a whole range of gram sizes, ranging from 25, 22, 20, 18, 15 and 7 grams, and they can be ridged or ridgeless. Now, just to explain what that ridge or ridgeless actually is, if you look at this VST basket here, it is ridgeless. There is no extra little ridge that holds it into your group handle with the wire basket. So it'll pop in and out a lot easier, where a ridged basket like this one basically allows the group wire to hold that basket in a lot firmer. A little bit harder to push in, harder to get out, but that is the only difference between a ridged and a ridgeless. Now, the effect that may have after you've extracted coffee is when you're trying to knock it out, you might get a little bit of extra grind in this little area, and also the size of the actual tamper that you're using. So you might need to have a little bit more space in a millimeter size for a ridged basket over a ridgeless. So you can go a little bit larger. This is a 58 mil range of baskets, but you could go maybe a 58.4 or 58.6 and it'll be a lot firmer and tighter because we don't have to worry about it binding over the ridge in this basket here. So that's pretty much a personal choice really, which way you end up with those ones. So in this cheaper basket, we can start to see with a bit of use, it has actually started to dome and press down into your actual group handle. And that's happening because people are not weighing their coffee grind, they're just dosing straight into the handle, probably overpacking the basket, and when you put water onto it, it's going to expand that coffee and create a lot of extra pressure. And something has to give. Now, there is a solenoid which will take the water pressure out, but while that's happening, if the water can't come through because you've got a finer grind, it's going to crease that basket and make it bend. Now, what's actually happening on the side over here, you can start to see a crease, and that will at some point open up and become a crack. And if that does happen to you, what will happen is in your coffee shots, it'll look like a beautiful shot to start for the first, say, 10 seconds, and then instantly it'll just gush out, terribly, and you'll think it'll be the worst extraction. You don't know really what's going on. So if that happens to you, check your basket, look for a crack, and I reckon that's going to identify that issue for you. So ultimately, we want to stop that from happening because we're going to get some more life out of our baskets, and we want to make sure that that surface stays nice and flat so that the water can process nice and evenly through. And we're not going to have that if the basket is a more durable basket made from a better material. So that's what the VST is going to give us. So they're the pretty obvious things that you start to think about. And you go, okay, quality and design and so on. But now we're going to look at the technology that's actually quite impressive when we look at a VST. Now, the holes that are placed into both these baskets, we may think that they look the same, but there's a lot of technology that has gone into the VST range. So essentially, a machine basically punches those holes in, and we're finished up with holes. It's nice and easy. If you get your basket and have a look at it under a light like this, you'll start to see that some of those holes may actually not be punched fully all the way through. And if you look at them in a microscope, they may not be a perfectly round shape. They could be a star shape or an oval shape. And basically that is changing how your coffee and water is actually passing through here. So it's actually the end flow of our espresso which is being changed. So if we're getting a varying change of flow through individual holes, essentially that's a different change in the extraction that we're achieving. I thought I had my phone on silent.
Sorry.
All right. So that's pretty easy to understand. Good old flow. Well, in the VST basket, there is another whole range of thought that's gone into it. So when we've got our coffee and it's packed into this basket and the water is pressurizing that, basically there's a different type of pressure that is being applied on top of this coffee bed when we have more or less coffee in there. So in this basket, it's a 22 gram basket. We'll put 22 grams of coffee in there. But if we had the 18 or the 20 or all the way down to the 7 grams, that density of grind is actually going to affect the pressure and the flow that we can get out of that coffee. So what has made the VST even more precise is that in the box, whichever size that you get this little chart. And this chart tells you about how big the hole size is and how consistent it is for the specific size of basket and grams of coffee you're going to have. And what it's ensuring is that the flow that comes out the bottom is consistent. So that's really cool, because now we're matching different densities of coffee to actually get the same flow. So that's taking another whole part of the puzzle away. So we could technically go and use a 15 gram basket and do an extraction, and we'll get the same flow as we would with 20 or 22 grams of coffee. So that's taking science to the whole next level, and I think that's amazing. That's going to really help us get consistency if you've got a single shot or a double shot with different sizes of coffee in different baskets. So where do I see this basket fitting? Well, if you've got yourself a nice naked handle and you're going to start to really focus on your espresso, you really want to make sure that the extraction that's coming out of here and what you can see is going to be the best, because you'll start to make some decisions on the look and the quality of that actual extraction. So what I want to do is I want to use a older, cheaper bent basket, and we'll do an extraction, and then we'll use the VST. And hopefully we can see a few cool results coming out of that. So with everything being consistent, we're going to run these 2 shots. I've just heated them up with water and kept them on top of the machine so we can keep that heat in the basket, and the handle's been heated as well. So they're nice and dry and ready to go. We're still going to use our standard recipe, which is going to be 22.5 grams of coffee in there. And we're going to pull a normal. So that's going to be our 2-to-1 ratio. We'll end up with 45 grams of liquid weight in the end. Now that has actually just come a tad over on the grinder. There we go. So we're 22.5 grams of coffee. We'll pop that into the bent basket first. You can see that's quite domed and it's ridged. I'm not going to do any WDT or anything like that. We're just going to level it out nicely, because if we did WDT, those clumps would be fixed. We're just going to do a good old NCD. Get that flat. To be honest, that NCD needs to be a little bit deeper for this one. Here we go, that's fixed that up a lot. Okay, so we're tamped. No latte glasses. Sorry, no latte glasses on the machine. All right, so we're going to tear that off, lock it in, and start our extraction. Now we do have a pre-infusion here as well. There you go. You can see that high little pressure squirt that actually came out the left. Oh, that got me in the eye. Okay, there's a lot of squirting going on here. There you go, you can see another one. And even look at the color there. You can see the dark, the light. Actually, it's a really good demonstration of what we don't want to have happen. There's inconsistencies all the way through that extraction. Now, if we couldn't see that because we had a double spout portafilter on there, we would just look at our espresso and go, oh, that's pretty tasty, you know. We've got some nice dark colors in there and a bit of that tiger striping and mottling. and we stopped that pretty much exactly where we needed to be. I didn't check that weight, I was a little bit excited, but there you go, 44.2 grams. So let's go back and do that with the, yep, that's a pretty good extraction, I'm happy with that. We'll pop the VST in. All right, it's tiered. We'll get our 22.5 grams of coffee. Oh, that's gone over. There you go, 22.5. Yep, great. All right, so we do have a few little clumps in there again. So we're pretty much apples for apples. There we go, NCD leveled. Okay, and we're tamped that one nice and flat and level. Flush our head, try and keep it all the same. Okay, so it did come out a little bit quick there. At the moment, we are not seeing any high pressure squirts. Oh, one little one that came out. Maybe another one, but that's a pretty consistent color. It's definitely got that typical naked extraction with the cone of water there coming down. And we've got 45.8 grams of liquid. So we actually got, we got more through that. That actually passed through that coffee bed with more volume. And if I actually have a look here, it is actually a little over extracted. You can see that real distinct white pale area there. So that's pretty typical of what's going to happen when we start to use a VST basket. What's actually happening is the flow of water is coming through a lot quicker, and it's pretty common for people to find that when you jump on and use VST baskets. So now we can have consistency in those hole sizes. We can go a bit finer on our grind and start to slow that down. So don't be frightened when you do use these and it starts to speed up your shots and your time of your recipe starts to come shorter and shorter. Well, you can fix that by going finer on your grind. So all in all, we'll just pop that back out, have a look. There you go. I always like to look at the bottom of a shot there, because if you've got too much stickiness or any issues happening, you can usually see where that's been caught up afterwards, but that's actually really quite clean. The other one, it's still pretty clean as well, but it's definitely bent, definitely buckled. You can see those issues inside there. Now, I'm not saying that in this example that this was perfect, because I would go back and I'd start to change to a finer grind. I think I might have seen maybe 2 little high pressurized squirts coming out of there, but they were very brief, very small. This one, I think there was 3 or 4 that were high pressurized, really squirting out and really causing lots of issues. So there's channeling happening in there as well. So if that gives you an idea of what's happening between a bent old basic basket versus a VST, I hope it's got you an understanding as why we'd look at it. Now, we wanted to look at this further. We go really geeky, we can go TDS and actually start to see how much dissolved solids and dialing this in perfectly to make sure that we're going to get the best recipe. So we'll do that in another video. But if you've got any questions, hey, please reach out. Happy to help you with those. The VSTs are on our website. You can get yourself a nice little handle like that. If you're going to invest into a naked and spend this kind of money, well, you want to get a nice basket for it. Don't cheap out and get a really cheap, badly pressed hold basket, because you're only going to negate any sort of development of your experience in learning how to extract coffee better. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Hope that's helped you. We'll catch you next time. Cheers.